that's a high bar, Brooke. Well, hey, thank you all for joining today. I'm pleased we have this size of a group because my hope is that more than me talking, we can kind of get into some specifics with each of you and what your interests are. I've got a whole host of talking points sitting here next to me, so I'll kind of keep us on track. But I do hope that this is interactive, and I think you'll get the most out of it that way, and I will as well. So if you don't mind, let me start with drop something in the chat or take yourself off of mute. And if you will, tell me something you hope to get out of our conversation today.
So I actually have structured I got my own business. It's a caregiving agency. So I was actually wanting to attend this to maybe get some information on onboarding of employees and maybe from a business owner point, how to go about that, questions to ask, and maybe things to look for and good candidates for my business. So I'm actually on the opposite end of it, but I know this will be good.
Awesome. Anyone else want to jump in? And again, feel free to put it in the chat if you're more comfortable. Learn about skills I can show my high school students. Okay. All right. Well, here's what I thought we would do, and I'll keep your two thoughts in mind as we go along here. But one, I want to build some trust with you all so that we can get to that point where we're asking questions and we're comfortable with one another. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time telling you about how I got to where I am in my career and kind of that journey. I also want to talk about what is a career and how do I get one. And Robin, maybe we'll work in some of the onboarding and recruitment kind of conversation as to what folks are looking for right now. And maybe that will be helpful on your journey. And then I also want to talk about what I consider to be some intangibles that we all can embrace in our lives on a daily basis to make us not only job and career ready, but just better for ourselves, our family, and our communities. So welcome, Elizabeth. We're just getting started, and so I've asked everyone if you want to drop something in the chat just to let me know what you're hoping to get out of this session today. So who am I? I'm an only child raised by a single mom. My parents got divorced before I was a year old. My mom was a small business owner, and we grew up in a townhouse in Columbus, Ohio, which is where I'm originally from. Now, an interesting thing happened when I was about 16 years old. My mom found a wonderful new man named Roy, who became my stepdad. And why that's so interesting when I was 16 is that my mom and my stepdad decided they wanted to spend a lot of time with each other anywhere but at home. So they traveled frequently. Roy also took over all the household chores that I had been doing for years and years and years at the time. You know, from changing light bulbs to taking the trash out to try and fix broken things at home. So when he stepped into the picture, for the first time in my life, I had freedom and access to a childhood that I had never had. So we fast forward to my senior year of high school. And Emily, this will make you cringe, I'm certain. But my senior year of high school, I managed to go from the top half of my class to the bottom half of my graduating class. I did not bring home a 2.0 my entire senior year. Um, it was shocking and devastating. Somehow I still made it out. But that was a real challenge. And so it started to limit my potential as far as where I could go and what I could do next. I ended up moving in with 9 other guys into a big apartment near the campus of Ohio State. And that lasted for about 6 months. And then I called my mom and said, hey, this is not working. Can I come back home? She said, sure, come on home. So I moved back in. That first night was great. My mom and stepdad helped get all my stuff together, loaded it in a truck. We brought it home, had dinner with my mom. She said, hey, sleep good tonight. And then the next morning, when I woke up, she said, hey, we need to have a talk. And I said, okay. We sat down and she said, this is our house. This is not a hotel. You will not be here permanently. So this month you'll have rent, and your rent is due at the first of each month. And if you're late on your rent, there will be late fees for missing rent. And you have to check in with us before you go anywhere and let us know when to expect you at home. Kind of devastating because I thought this does not feel like I'm living at home anymore. But really what was happening there was, my mom was continuing to prepare me for my future and to ensure that I was going to be a responsible contributor to society and take care of myself and my bills. So shortly after I was living there, I desperately wanted out to go do something else. I worked for a month at a summer camp in Virginia with Young Life. And after that, for the first time in my life, I moved to Indiana to live with my dad because I thought things would be so much better with him. And while I was there, my dad insisted that I enroll in college. And so he took me to Ivy Tech Community College at the time. And I enrolled there. And for the very first time in my life, I loved learning and began to study and really dig in. In fact, I loved the experience so much, I ran to be the student government president and did that for 2 years. I also met my wife there, and then we transferred to Northern Kentucky University, which is just across the river from Cincinnati. And we finished our bachelor's degrees there. Now, an interesting thing happened my senior year. My last semester, I began looking for a job, and I got a job as a general manager in training at a hotel called Extended Stay America. And I worked there for about a year. And I graduated in December of 2001. And many of you, or most of you, remember what happened in September of 2001. So I anticipated graduating college with some general manager experience at a hotel and just getting a fabulous job, making lots of money, and the world would be mine. It only took me 8 months after graduating to actually find a job because of how devastating 9/11 was. And it really shrank the prospects and opportunities that I had. So my first job out of college, I worked as a claims adjuster with Progressive Insurance. My mom owned an insurance agency. I told you she was a small business owner. So after Progressive, I went to work at her agency with her and 2 of her partners. A couple of years into that experience, my mom sold her interest in the business to her partners. And it left an interesting dynamic in the business. But it also was a time where I realized I needed to change jobs and careers again. And so I applied and started working at the Ohio State Bar Association, which is the association for all the lawyers in Ohio. They owned an insurance agency, so I started managing that. And I did that for several years. And then if you recall, during the Obama administration, the Affordable Care Act was rolled out. And it just so happened the world of insurance that I was in was tied very heavily to health insurance. And it didn't appear that that was going to be a long-term career that I could stay in with the changes that were announced. So I began the arduous process of looking for yet another job. And I went to work for Nationwide Insurance, doing mergers and acquisitions for them. And that was a job that I learned a lot in, but I had a lot of growing pains there as well. And it was there that I realized I wasn't doing what I loved to do. And I wasn't being personally rewarded in the way that I wanted to be rewarded within myself. So that led me to search for a different career. And I went back to that community college that I graduated from and started looking to see what jobs they had available. And they had a job in a division of the college called corporate college. And that was really the area of the college that worked with business and industry partners in trying to help them solve everyday challenges, whether it was onboarding, recruiting employees, training existing staff, or preparing for big changes. And so I worked in Evansville, Indiana for about 5 years doing that. And then I was ready for the next opportunity with career growth again. And that was about 3.5 years ago. I ended up here in Chattanooga, and I was hired as the Vice President for Economic and Workforce Development at Chattanooga State Community College. And I've been there ever since. I tell the president of the college, Dr. Rebecca Ashford, on a regular basis that I have the best job in the college. And I really believe that. But it's because of the work that I get to do in the community and the lives that we get to touch, and the permanent changes we get to help start in people's lives. And what I talk about most frequently is that my job is to create access to opportunity for others, for those that don't have it. So that's been my journey to get where I am and how I got here. And I'll remind you, there's still time to put in the chat something that you hope to get out of today's session, so I can try and hit on that for you personally. So what I want to do now is talk about career readiness. What is a career? We have a small group on here, so I would love it if we got interactive, but I've also been on your side of the screen, so I know it's not always the most enjoyable thing to do, and some people like to just sit and listen, so that's okay, no shame here at all. But does anyone want to take a stab and share with me what your idea is? What is a career? Elizabeth, it looks like you may be trying to share, but I cannot hear you. It doesn't look like you're muted, but I can't hear you. Maybe you can type your idea in the chat. That would be great. Thanks for trying. And
Is this better?
yes.
Okay. Okay, so I too work for workforce development with Dr. David Banks for the city of Chattanooga. I started, I graduated with Strayer University, and that was started out to be my internship, and I ended up working with him, and it is a very rewarding. I loved it, enjoyed it very much. So when he was teaching and he was teaching me, he said career. base meaning of the word career is circular, is the carrier career is the search. Is don't think about don't think about your business, your new world, um your what you're coming into as a revolving thing. Because you can get stuck in that mindset as a career, a circular round and round thing. You just think of it as an everyday and new adventure. Every day, something to learn, to build on. He says, always have an open mindset. He says, look down and look at your feet and where is it facing? Where's your shoulders facing? Where's your head facing? It's facing forward. He says, that's where you should be thinking and your mind is to be. Oh,
Awesome.
yes. He says, he says, what you are in is not a career. Every day is an adventure, a business adventure.
Nice. And we're going to touch on that a little bit as well with, lifelong learning. This is really a journey that we're on, and it's not a one and done. So, what I did, and Emily, I don't know if you did the same thing that I did, but you nailed the dictionary definition of what a career is. It's something long term that you can really invest yourself into, and something that provides you opportunity for growth. Now, when we think about growth, and if you all know, if you scroll down to the bottom of your screen, you'll see a little reactions button, which is a circle with a smiley face. And when you click on that, you're going to have clapping hands, a thumbs up, a heart, and then some emojis as well. But if you want to use that button, I'm just curious, when we talk about a career, is money important to you in that thought process? And I think that's obviously a no-brainer, right? We need money to be a part of that process. But one of the intangibles that we don't always think about that is incredibly important as you think about a career in planning. And Emily, I would really think about this for your students in particular. And Robin, I think it was you who mentioned the onboarding and attracting employees. But what's critically important on both sides of that equation is that you feel valued in the career that you're going to be entering into. And so as an employer, there's also a big push right now to make sure that employees feel valued in the work that they do. And that is almost as important as money, because people are willing to put up with a lot and do a lot of hard work as long as they feel valued, and feel like they're contributing and they're part of the team. So for those of you who are not employed, who might be on here and are looking for a career, or Emily, you might throw out an example of a student or two of yours and name a career field for me. Name a job that you're interested in, or that someone you know is interested in. And again, the idea here is I can give you basic examples of career readiness. And we'll get into that, but I think it'll be a lot better and more meaningful for you if we use a real life example or two of how to go about the process in preparing for that career. And Emily, I see you maybe typing. Robin, did you have something to add? You were lit up on my screen.
Oh, no, I'm just listening right now.
Very good. Brooke, yeah, oh, here we go. There, okay, few student interests and careers at this point in high school: performing arts, engineering, and nursing. Okay. Great. Thank you for those. All right. So before we kind of go through this process and break this down for career readiness, will you all do me a favor? And I can't see several of you, but those that I can, will you sit there for just a minute? Take a deep breath. Just exhale, relax. Now, will you cross your arms for me? Just normally. Get comfortable. Oh, stretch a little bit. Yeah, feels kind of good, right? Now, if you will, if you have your right hand over top of your left arm, or you have your left hand on your right arm, I want you to reverse this. So undo this and do it the other way. How does that feel? Does it feel strange? Is it kind of awkward? A little bit uncomfortable? Just not quite normal. That feeling is a feeling that we frequently run from. We run from that feeling because it makes us uncomfortable. But on your path to a career, you will experience that feeling frequently. And it's okay. It's a good feeling to have. When you have that feeling, it generally means you are heading in the right direction because you are challenging yourself to do something different than you've always done, and you are growing in the process. So embrace that feeling when it comes. All right, so here are the basics for me on career readiness and what to do. And so, Emily, thank you for the 3 examples. We have performing arts, engineering, and nursing. So we really have some STEAM field occupations here, which are science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. All great fields. So the very first step in the process, and I have 2 boys, their ages 13 and 11, and this is what I talk to them about as well. So let's take performing arts. The very first thing that I would have a student do is narrow down what part of performing arts are they most interested in. Because there are a whole host of occupations within the performing arts arena. One, obviously, kind of comes to mind, I think, for all of us, which is where you are the center of attention, or you are the actor or actress, or you are the model. And many of those jobs don't actually require a degree, but they do require some professional training in order to obtain that. There are a lot of jobs that are in the background of performing arts occupations, including accountants and business managers and lawyers. And so I would really have someone explore all of those occupations within the performing arts. And while exploring those, it's important to note, do I need specialized training for this? Do I need a degree? And at each one of those steps, the question or the answer shouldn't just be a simple yes or no. If it's yes, I need some sort of additional training, then what is that training? Where can I find that training? And how expensive is that training? And then I would highly encourage anyone working on this to keep a detailed list as they uncover these different pieces about that occupation. Because you want to know what it costs to get into that occupation, and then what are the expected earnings for someone in that occupation. And you should look at first year, 5-year, and then lifetime earnings as well, because we need to do some sort of calculation on the return on investment and the amount of time it will take to go through that training or educational degree track in order to obtain that degree or to obtain that career. The same thing could be said for engineering and nursing. Now, we know both of these occupations do require post-secondary education. So that, of course, is education beyond high school. And the ways to obtain these degrees, and I'll spend a minute here on it because we are in Tennessee, and having been in higher education in other states, Tennessee provides an incredible opportunity for residents, particularly, Emily, for your students that are getting ready to graduate high school. We have Tennessee Promise, and I'm sure all of you or most of you are familiar with that, but that essentially is free tuition for high school graduates who go on to community college in the state of Tennessee. That's a huge benefit, especially when we know there's $1.6 trillion of student loan debt on a national scale. And then for individuals who are 24 years of age or older, or who are 18 and older and independent as far as how they file their taxes, we also have Tennessee Reconnect. And so this is a great way for adults to also be able to tap into tuition-free community college to prepare for a job, both of which will get you started in, actually, all of them will get you started in nursing, engineering, or performing arts, even at Chattanooga State, because we have all of those. Now, when we talk about nursing, I think a lot of folks, and I have a niece who went on to get a bachelor's degree in nursing, and she went straight to a 4-year school and obtained her degree and then got a job in that field. Now, Emily, I bring this up for you and your students. The way my niece went about that was probably the most expensive way that she possibly could have, by going straight to a 4-year school and taking loans out for that entire career prep. She could have very easily gone to a community college and become a registered nurse. And then what we don't take advantage of nearly enough is working for employers who offer tuition reimbursement, because she could have very easily gotten a job at a hospital, which she ended up doing, as an RN, and then that hospital would have happily paid for her to go on and get her bachelor's degree, and then even her master's degree if she wanted it. So knowing the marketplace and knowing how to best use your dollars and your assets is an incredible piece that cannot be overlooked in the career preparation. Now, for someone who wanted a job in engineering, I would encourage anyone, whether it's a current high school student or an adult who wants to work in that field, to get engaged with engineers, get to know engineers, talk to different engineers. I think there are probably a dozen different types of engineer that you can become. So there are lots of options there. But I think it's important to start establishing mentorships and relationships in the community with those that are already in that occupation. Because I think most of the time you find people who are already in those jobs really want to help other people who want to work in those same jobs. And you can't say enough about the social capital that is built in establishing a relationship with somebody in that field who can help you along the way in that process. I would also, along those same lines, encourage everyone, especially on here and others that you know, if you're not already on LinkedIn, to get on LinkedIn and to establish an account on there, and then begin connecting with as many people as you possibly can that you know. Now, you have to be a little bit careful because you can't just search everybody and start sending invites to random people you don't know. Or LinkedIn won't let you do that any longer, and they'll start blocking you from sending those invites. But it's a great way, and to start as early as possible, to build your connection base into the hundreds, if not thousands, of people that you know, because you can go there as a tool to pick the brains of other people that are in a career and occupation that you're looking to break into. You can see their journey on where they started and how they got to the job that they got. And I would also say, particularly from a training and education standpoint, it's important to know what the objectives are and what you're trying to achieve. I know a lot of times we have people who put really high pressure on themselves to get, say, straight A's or to never fail on a test. And that isn't always relevant on the backside of whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. So if you get a C, that's okay. C's are okay. You just have to know what your next step is in the career process. And Emily, I'm thinking about your students who you're doing ACT prep for, and high achievers in particular. You can survive a C. What they need to be most concerned about is if they want to go into a graduate school of some sort, and again, understanding what those minimum GPA requirements are to get into there. I hope most of you, I'm going to make a book recommendation here because I want to talk about this a little bit and how it applies in this process as well. If you have not read it, and it has been out for probably a couple of decades at this point, but the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey is an excellent book. And I want to walk through those. And the primary reason I want to walk through those is because the job market and the landscape of the jobs we have today is changing rapidly. And the jobs of tomorrow will be different than what we have today. And so I think it's going to be incredibly important for anyone in their career journey, and certainly in preparing for a career, to remain flexible and to have an open mind and a willingness to take on new challenges. Right now in our local market, we have a lot of jobs that are going unfilled. Many of these jobs are entry level. They're service industry oriented. We know we have people who need jobs, but these jobs aren't being attractive for whatever reason, and they're not bringing people, the applicants that these businesses need. And so what will likely end up happening is that a lot of those jobs are going to face automation, which really means that we're going to have robots and computers that are doing a lot of those jobs. And so we're going to need to prepare for the next skill. And that skill, of course, is still going to be technology driven, because those robots, the machine learning, the AI, virtual reality, all of these things are still going to need some sort of human interaction to make sure that they're not broken, and when they do break, that they can be fixed. So, talking about Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People and how that fits into not only career readiness, but getting ready for the changes that are certain to come in the next several years as it relates to the jobs that are going to be created, is to be proactive. And that goes back to what we were talking about with exploring different jobs and what's required to obtain those jobs. And we can't sit and wait for things to come to us. Good things happen to those that are busy and are actively involved in their own journey and their career. So be proactive in doing research, be proactive in engaging with people in those fields, and be proactive in asking for opportunities. I think that, you know, one of the things that I'm working on in Chattanooga is I would like to change our process because currently it's get an education, then get your career. And I think we ought to be doing education and career more simultaneously. It's crazy to me to imagine we send somebody away for 2 to 4 years to learn, study, and practice an occupation. And then we make them wait all that time until they're actually allowed to work in that occupation. And can you all hear my dog barking? Hey, shh. Welcome to working from home, right? Hey, shh. My apologies. The other thing is to begin with the end in mind. And again, when we talk about being career ready and job ready, that's really a big part of that process. Why are you doing what you're doing? What is your goal? What is it that you're trying to achieve? If you leave your house to go on vacation and you don't have a map, you don't have Google Maps turned on or Waze, and you haven't told it where you're going, how do you know where you're headed? How will you get there? You have to know what that goal is, why you want to get there, and keep that in mind and let that guide your process for determining the road and the journey that you're going to take. This is big, I think, for all of us, but especially in the career readiness field. It's put first things first. So it's really about prioritizing what is really important. Your attention and your input into the things that you care about is incredibly important. And if we let ourselves be distracted by negative self-talk, I know I can't see everyone's hands and nobody wants to raise this, but occasionally you can have negative self-talk, and that's very distracting. And it's hurtful in your process. So prioritize. It's normal to have negative self-talk, but when it comes up, invite it, recognize it, and then tell it to go sit in the waiting room because you're busy working on things that are important right now. Prioritize. That is an incredible key to success here. This next one, we don't do this nearly enough, which is think win-win, right? I win, you win. When we have a situation, when we can create a situation like that together, our level of success grows exponentially. So if someone is looking for a career in a particular field, I would strongly encourage them, again, to reach out to somebody already working in that field and ask, how can I become more involved with you? Can I job shadow you? Can I spend a week with you? What can I do for you to get time for me to learn more about that job and to develop a relationship with you? And so create that win-win. Win-win is often responded to with a yes, that will work. Let's do this. Let's try that. So go for the win-win. This next one, we all definitely need to practice in our daily lives. I think there are some folks maybe in DC and all over our country right now that could really spend some time on this, but it's seek first to understand and then to be understood. Because no one has ever won an argument by screaming at someone who is screaming at you, right? That's not how that happens. But if we sit down and we genuinely care about one another, listen to what someone has to say, process those thoughts from their perspective, and then begin to share yours in that process. That's not only a great thing that we can do on a daily basis in our own individual lives, but that's an important process of a job interview, right? It is to listen to the person who is interviewing you, ask them to clarify if you have questions or need a deeper understanding of what is being posed to you, and then begin to share your response to that. So seek first to understand and then to be understood. The next one, if you were as old as me, this used to be a bingo game that we would play during meetings. This is the word synergize. And so when anyone would say synergize in a meeting, secretly in our minds, we would say bingo because that was a big buzzword at the time. But synergy is, again, what we get from one another and being in each other's presence, being in an online video. But it's how do we take each other's energy and really put that towards the goal of what we're trying to achieve. And again, I think back to college students. I think back to people who are trying to seek a job in a career field. They're trying to break in. Who do you know that can help you get to where you want to be? And the last of the 7 habits is sharpen the saw. This is kind of where we started with Elizabeth sharing her thoughts on what a career is. But learning is a journey and it's not a destination. There's not a point in time where you get to a spot and you're done learning and it's over and you can hang it up and life's great from here. I don't have to learn anything else. That doesn't exist. Every day we need to learn, and that's how we continue to grow. Robin, I want to go back to your question early on about onboarding employees and also attracting folks into a particular field. And by the way, I'm happy to I'm going to put my email in here real quick for you. So for anyone who's interested in talking offline, one-on-one, I'm happy to do so. I just dropped my email address in the chat. Robin, if I understood your field, when you said that early on, I think you have some interesting challenges, not the least of which, and don't let me be assumptive, but wages, entry-level wages in that occupation are a challenge right now. I think there's high demand for people who want to serve other people in a healthcare setting, but the work requires a lot of care, and it's not easy work, and so it's inherently difficult, not only to attract people, but to keep people there. So part of the keys, as I see with you and the other companies that we talk to about this, where you can, investing in the ability to raise wages is going to be an important thing long term. and I understand there are challenges with that. But then being the company that you want your employees to work at is incredibly important. And that goes back to where we started. And it really goes back to the career readiness on both sides of the equation. It's not just the job, but who's the company? Who is the boss? Who's the manager? Is it somebody that you want to work for? And making sure that your staff is set up in a way that they're empowered to really focus on humans and not just the tasks at hand, and to recognize individuals and their strengths, and creating opportunities to play to those strengths, help increase that employee job satisfaction. We've been on a journey at the college, and we have read a book, and this book is about corporate culture, or the culture at your company. And the title, I just am a little hesitant on because of the everything that's happening in our communities across the country now. So the book title, and you'll understand my pause in setting that up here in a minute, but it's called Everybody Matters. And it doesn't have anything to do with the very serious issues that we're facing across the country. But it's about internal culture at companies and how to create and foster that. And we've been on that journey at the college, and it's really about human-centered leadership. And so we have to be very careful that we don't turn everyone into a checkbox, and try and systematize every human and all of their functions in a job. People have to be people. Let's see. That one just came in. Yeah. So Robin, that's kind of my advice there. Is it's really about building culture. And again, that book is called Everybody Matters. It's written by a guy by the name of Bob Chapman. And if you will Google Bob Chapman after this, you'll find a nice TED Talk that he did that's about a 5-minute version of his longer book. But that way you can know, at what level of interest you have in relation to that. So I'm going to wrap up by saying that my intent wasn't to give you a checklist of, okay, here's what I can do to be career ready tomorrow. It needs to be an exploratory process that you take based on what you're interested in. So whether it's regardless of what career it is, we obviously need to think about whether or not this career can pay the bills. That's important. So take a look at first-year earnings, 5-year earnings, and again, lifetime earnings, and try and factor that into the process. For many of us who already know what bills are like, it's pretty easy to determine that out. Emily, for your students in particular, I hope they begin to think about what is rent, what are utility bills, how much is this cell phone that my mom and dad gave me, how much does that really cost? Insurance and all those types of things, so that it's difficult to think 5 and 10 years down the road, but it's important that you're choosing an occupation that can satisfactorily reward you for the amount of time that you spend there. Again, keeping in mind that a career is something that we're going to devote a significant portion of our life to, and we hope that it provides opportunity for growth along the way. So explore, get to know people in the field, ask for opportunities to work with them, even early on if it's unpaid opportunities during the summer. Take those and explore those. And then the one I didn't tap into, but many of you may know others that are currently unemployed and looking for careers and opportunities. There are lots of training programs throughout our community. I won't selfishly plug ours, but we do have them, and you can find them if you look for them, or if you send me an email later. But take advantage of those opportunities and get connected to people who want to help you achieve everything that you want to achieve. And with that, I'm done. I wanted to leave some time if there were any other questions or comments that you wanted to share.